first step and easiest to see who it is you're buying from. A company should be transparent about who they are with a business address, phone number, and so on. If it seems like they're trying to hide themselves, you should ask yourself why. The company should be easy to contact so they can support their customers. Thankfully, once you make a choice, packaging is a very strong indicator whether or not a respirator is authentic. The packaging needs to be sealed and tamper resistant. Diving deeper into the legal requirements, there should be information about this potentially life-saving product, which include the model, standard, series, manufacturer name, address, and service phone number. And the strongest indicator of authenticity is the production date, which needs to be stamped on the packaging of every single respirator. In this case, we have the year 2020, May 8th. Another dead giveaway is the UPC code, which on a regulated product is required. Remember, it needs to be tamper resistant. Now let's compare this with a fraudulent mask, which we've sent in for testing and confirmed is a fake. We have packaging that isn't tamper resistant. There's no markings, dates, codes, or any information on the packaging. Clearly a fake. Here we have a verified, authentic KN95. It's sealed on all sides, tamper resistant with a tearaway seal, and scary Chinese writing. But don't be intimidated because Google makes a very easy to use application where you can use your camera to live translate any language into any language. Just because a product isn't written in your native language doesn't mean that it's lower quality. But if you don't have access to the app, there's still dead giveaways such as the UPC code, the manufacturer's phone number, and most importantly, the date code, which is stamped on every single package, this one being April 15th of 2020. Now compare this to a recent Amazon purchase that was sent in by a customer. No markings of any kind, no tamper-proof packaging. After we sent it to a lab, we confirmed it was a fake. Now compare it with this, the packaging of an N95 respirator. It has all the necessary markings. And yes, you guessed it, the mandatory date code at the top. Here we have another customer submission that was purchased off Amazon. At first glance, it's missing the UPC code, date stamp, and once you look inside, the respirators are just shoved in the bag. And after we sent this into testing, it was confirmed a fake. Now let's take a closer look at an authentic respirator. This tamper-proof packaging gave us a little bit of trouble, but once inside, we're presented with neatly stacked respirators. Now we're going to inspect the respirator's welds. What we're looking for is defined consistency. The different layers are fused together by a process called ultrasonic welding, turning the polypropylene layers transparent. Every single respirator must undergo a visual inspection before being certified. Now let's compare with a customer-submitted fraudulent KN95. Here we can see welds that don't go all the way through and inconsistencies in the cut. But the most noticeable portion of this inspection is the gross excess exposing the inside layers. Here we have a great example of an inconsistent weld that wouldn't pass a visual inspection. In this example, we have a wavy cut along the weld line, as if it were cut by hand. This inconsistency can be found throughout the weld line. And again, we see the interior layers exposed. Compare this to an authentic N95. The welds are even and consistent, the cuts are straight, and there is no gross excess exposing the internal layers. When comparing an authentic N95 and KN95 side by side, it's easy to see that they are held to very similar standards. Now let's compare this with one of our fakes. The differences are stark. The inconsistent welds, the excess, and just the overall appearance is sloppy when compared to the authentic. the nose piece on the exterior covering part of the weld. And again, the interior layer is exposed. Here we could see cotton. Now let's make some cuts and expose these inside layers. Hold on a minute. If I cut into the respirator, doesn't that make it completely useless? Yes, it does. The only way to truly see if a respirator is authentic or not is to compromise it. We'd like you to know that company transparency and packaging alone have been successful in determining the authenticity of all the respirators we've tested. We don't recommend that anybody use this next step to determine whether or not their respirators are authentic. We are showing you this step in our process simply to show the interior layer, which is the most expensive and difficult part to produce of a respirator. Almost every single respirator that we have disassembled and shown to be a fake, there's been an interior layer of cotton used to fatten it up to give the false impression of more filtration, when in fact there's only one layer that filters, and it is called melt-blown polypropylene. This incredibly thin, tissue-like paper is what is responsible for filtering out particles. When we pull apart the melt-blown polypropylene, we should see a spider web-like fiber be exposed, but here we find clean edges. This simple test has been used with every laboratory submission and is shown to be consistent with the authenticity results. Again, clean break, no webbing shown. Now, let's compare this to how an authentic respirator's filtering layer reacts to being pulled apart. Once familiar, there is much more resistance and an incredible amount of elasticity in this material. Here, we can see the webbing exposed. Whether you use respirators in your line of work, or you're the everyday consumer looking to find authentic respirators in today's marketplace, using these steps will give you the insight you need to make a better buying decision.